Chapter 12, Friction. Introduction.
Scientific concepts are an integral part of our life.
Behind our every action, there is an application of science. Learning science is not only about reading your science textbooks, but writing tests. It is also about understanding the simple science in our life and using it to improve our life and conserve the resources. You have learnt about types of forces earlier. One of the most important contact forces is friction. Walking comes naturally to us, but have you ever wondered what enables you to walk? Why is running more difficult than walking? Why does a car slow down on applying brakes? Why do your hands warm up on rubbing? The answer to all these questions is friction. Let us learn more about the force of friction. Friction. Friction is a force that always opposes the movement of an object. Friction is a type of force that arises when two objects come into contact with each other. All objects have surfaces which are not even. There are grooves on the surfaces which can be seen under microscope. When two objects come into contact, these grooves interlock and make movement difficult. This creates friction. To move an object, you have to apply force to unlock the surfaces in contact. This force is opposite to friction and is used to measure the magnitude of friction. In the above activity, the force applied by the little finger was less, so the book did not move. When you applied more force with your hand, it moved. Sandpaper has a rough surface with lots of big grooves, so there was more friction between the book and the sandpaper. Hence, more force required to move it. So now you can understand that the magnitude of friction depends upon the size and number of grooves on the contact surfaces. All surfaces have grooves. Observe your hands. The lines of your hands create the ridges and grooves. So when you hold an object, there is friction between your hand and the surface of the object. A rough object will have more grooves and ridges, whereas a smooth object will have less grooves and ridges. When two smooth objects come in contact with each other, there will be less interlocking of the surfaces and hence less friction. On the contrary, when two rough objects come into contact, there will be more friction due to more interlocking. Can you guess what will happen when a rough and a smooth object are in contact?
Types of friction. There are three types of friction. They are as follows: static friction, sliding friction, rolling friction. Static friction. It is the type of friction that does not allow an object kept on a surface to move. For example, try to move a heavy box or cupboard. Are you able to move it? If you apply more force with the help of others, it will move. The frictional force between the box and the floor is static friction. Static friction can be measured with the help of a spring balance. It is a device to measure force. It contains a spring attached to a pointer on a scale and to a hook. When the spring is stretched, the pointer gives the reading of force created by the stretching. Sliding friction. When a moving object comes to a stop, the friction between object and the surface on which it moves is called sliding friction. Rolling friction.
The friction between a curved or a spherical object and a surface is called rolling friction. In Activity 12.4, if you use a small rectangular block instead of the battery, how would your observation change? A rectangular object will move less than the battery. Why is that?
As we studied earlier, friction is generated when two objects come into contact with each other. More the contact, more will be the friction.
In other words, friction depends upon the surface area of the objects.
In a rectangular box, more surfaces are in contact with the other surface, whereas a battery has less surface area. Due to its curved surface, less of it is in contact with the other surface. Hence, the battery moves farther due to lower friction. Rolling friction is always smaller than the sliding friction. In fact, circular objects are used in machines to reduce friction. It is due to this reason that the invention of wheel is said to be of immense importance. A wheel is circular, so when it moves on the ground, contact between the wheel and ground is very less. This leads to less friction and helps the wheel to move easily. Factors affecting friction. Since friction is a contact force, it depends on the properties of the surfaces in contact. In general, it is affected by the following.
Type of surface. If the surfaces in contact are very smooth, there will be very little friction.
For example, a marble road on a glass surface will move much faster than on a wooden or concrete surface. Surface area of an object. A circular object will produce rolling friction which is much less than the friction produced by a rectangular or flat-surfaced object. Mass of an object. A heavy object will produce more friction than a lighter object of the same surface area. It is more difficult to move a filled box than an empty one. This happens because the heavy object gets tightly interlocked with the surface below it than a lighter object. State of motion of an object. It is easier to move an object already in motion than an object at rest. If you have ever noticed people pushing a car or a bus, you will realize that initially they have to push very hard to make the car move. Once it starts moving, force required to keep it moving is less.
Friction in our lives. Friction is behind many important things that we do. It also has certain disadvantages. It is said that friction is a necessary evil in our life. Friction is needed. Walking. Walking is a basic necessity in our life. Friction helps us to walk. When we walk, our feet or shoes get interlocked with the ground and generate friction. This prevents us from slipping.
Now can you guess why walking on ice or oil is difficult?
Or why does a person slip on a banana peel? This is because these are smooth surfaces and our feet are not able to lock with them. As a result, as we step on such a surface, our foot moves forward, making us fall. Moving vehicles. Friction is generated between tires or wheels and the road surface. This helps to control the vehicle. If there were no friction, the vehicle would move too fast and go out of control. For this reason, there are grooves on the surface of tires. To write. We are able to write because of friction between the paper and the tip of a pen or pencil. Due to this friction, the ink gets transferred on the grooves of paper. Try writing on a glass surface or glazed paper with a pencil. What happens? Why? To light fire. Man discovered fire by rubbing stones together. How did this happen? When two objects slide past each other, they have to overcome friction. In this process, heat is produced. In fact, friction always produces heat. When the stones were rubbed with force, lot of heat was produced, giving rise to sparks. This led to the discovery of fire. Even today, fire is always produced by friction. A matchstick is made up of a chemical substance with rough surface. The side of a matchbox also has rough surface. When the head of the matchstick is rubbed with this surface, the chemical lights up due to heat produced by friction. To make furniture, friction helps a carpenter to cut wood with a saw or to hammer nails into wood. Without friction, the nails would not hold tightly. Where friction is not needed, friction always produces heat. It also involves constant rubbing of surfaces, which damages the surfaces. Some disadvantages of friction are as follows. Wearing out of objects. As said above, when two surfaces are continuously rubbing each other, there is wearing out of surfaces. For example, our shoes and sandals wear out after using them for some time. The soles of the shoes become thin due to constant contact with the floor. Similarly, tires of vehicles wear out due to constant contact with roads. The ridges of tires keep wearing out and need to be replaced periodically. Parts of machines also wear out when they constantly move against each other. Friction produces heat which can accelerate the wearing out of machines. This also results in energy wastage and reduces efficiency of machines. Reducing friction. To increase the efficiency of machines, friction has to be reduced. This is done mainly by applying lubricants and using ball bearings. Lubricants are slippery substances and they help make the surfaces smooth, thereby reducing friction. Another way of reducing friction is to use ball bearings between the parts of the machines. Ball bearings are spherical in shape and hence reduce friction.
Friction in liquids and gases. Liquids and gases are together called fluids due to their ability to flow. When an object moves through a fluid, its surface comes into contact with the particles of the fluid. This generates friction. The frictional force exerted by a fluid on an object is called drag. Drag acts in the direction opposite to that of movement of the object. When an object moves through air or liquid, it has to cut through the fluid to move forward. Hence, drag depends upon the following factors. Shape of the object. While moving in a fluid, an object has to cut through its surface. Imagine if boats were the same shape as a bus, would they able to move through water? To cut through water, an object must have a narrow head which can cut through water easily. Have you noted the shape of fish? They have a narrow head which can cut through water easily, a broader middle and again a narrow forked tail to help them change direction in water. Such a shape is called a streamlined shape. Planes also have streamlined shaped bodies that help them to cut air easily and move fast. The streamlined shape helps to reduce the drag on an object. For this reason, all ships, boats and aeroplanes have streamlined shape. Speed of object. An object moving with high speed in a fluid will experience more drag. For this reason, the meteors entering the Earth's atmosphere burn. A meteor enters the Earth's atmosphere at a very high speed. As a result, it experiences high magnitude of drag. This in turn produces excessive heat that burns the meteor. Nature of liquid. The drag created by a fluid depends on its density and viscosity. A more dense and viscous fluid will exert more drag on an object moving through it. For example, where do you think a toy boat will move faster? In a pool of water or in a pool of melted chocolate? So you have seen how friction is important in our lives. You will learn more about friction in higher classes.